Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Barry Beckham. When slide styles first appeared, many Pictures-to-Exe enthusiasts quickly got involved in creating quite complex animations as a demonstration of how good slide styles could be. Perhaps I could even suggest there was a little bit of an arms race between enthusiasts as they flexed their creative muscles and perhaps their egos just a little bit too. There's no doubt that slide styles are a great way to preserve that animation effect you spent quite some time creating. The arms race and egos are not exactly a bad thing either, because those enthusiasts stretch the boundaries and they offer the rest of us inspiration. Now we've had slide styles for a reasonable time, I find myself using them in a slightly different way, almost as a shortcut. Here is one example. I was recently asked to give a talk to my local camera club, and at the end of the talk I wanted to show some very early digital images that I'd created around 1996 to 1999. The images I wanted to show were all different shapes and sizes, so cropping each one to 16:9 aspect ratio wasn't really a practical thing to consider. But then again, 16:9 fits so well into our modern PCs, Mac computers, laptops and televisions. In these situations we can use a 16:9 background image rather like a border or a frame. That border or background allows us to attractively present images of different sizes and formats, but keep within a 16:9 aspect ratio show, and we can do so quickly using slide styles. The presentation could involve animation, of course, but it doesn't have to. That's the author's choice. In my case, I wanted static images. Now, sometimes with a presentation we want to make a manual show where we control the change of the slides, but here I wanted to make a fully automatic synchronized show with the images on screen for about 17 seconds each. Just enough time for me to say a few words about each of them, and I did a couple of dummy runs and I settled on 17 seconds as being a nice average for what I wanted to say. With a manual show I was pretty confident that my 8-minute presentation was likely to drift into 12 minutes or even more. So for me, an automatic slideshow helps to keep me focused. It also keeps the images moving and shortens the presentation a little, and that's quite important, I think, when we're showing images to other photographers. In these situations I use a slide style as a shortcut to set up the presentation, which we can do solely within Pictures-to-Exe, or we can use Photoshop to create a background for us. I've supplied 3 backgrounds with this download, but they really are easy to create in Photoshop. See my set of video tutorials called Presentation. It's the perfect partner for the AV enthusiast. After all, audiovisual is all about presentation. Having cleared the slide list, I'm going to make a start with this demonstration with a background I've created in Photoshop. But of course, remember, you can always do this solely within Pictures-to-Exe by going to the slide list, right-clicking and inserting a blank slide and doing what I'm about to do over that blank slide. But here I'm going to drag that down into the slide list. In normal circumstances we would set up the project options, but I'm quite happy with the default settings at the present time. Remember, when we create a slide style, it's going to remember the transition that we've currently got selected. So perhaps we need to select that if we're going to choose something different than the standard 2-second transition, which is a fade from one to the other. But to keep things simple, I'm going to stay with that simple 2-second fade. With my background selected, I'm going to go to my Objects and Animation button and open that up into the Objects and Animation screen, because what I'd like to do first off is to locate one of the images to start building the slide style that I'm going to use for my entire show. So I want to make sure that I get the slide style right. Now you can see that my background has this yellow-green bounding box around the outer edge. Because I'm not using any animation, it probably doesn't have much of a bearing on what I'm about to do. But it's not bad practice if you're going to get another image, unless you particularly want to create the parent and child relationship. Click in the grey area so the box disappears. Then I'm going to add an image, and I need to locate where I'm working from, and that's my desktop for this demo, and this folder called Slide Style Shortcut. Now I can pick really any picture, so let's pick the first one here, and it appears on screen. So what I need to do now is to decide exactly what I want my slide style to do. Now before I go any further, we're going to make a slide style here where the image that we're viewing is the changeable part of the slide style, but the background is going to be created within the slide style, so it's applied to every single image we select. So we need to make sure the correct one of these is marked as the main image. So if I select my background here and look up into the Properties tab, you can see that because I selected it first, the little box is ticked to say that that is the main image. That isn't the main image. The main image is the image that we need to show, which is this one. So I'm going to remove the tick there, select my image and place the tick back. All we've done there is to tell Pictures to Exe that when we make the slide style, the background becomes a part of the style, whereas the image does not. That's changeable. Now it's not my intention to animate these images, but if it was, now I would be considering setting up that animation. I want a nice presentation, maybe a drop shadow as well, maybe a line around the outer edge, and I also want to apply some text, because some of the images have a bit of text embedded within them, some don't, but I may want to put some extra text around the image anyway. And when we're making a slide style like this, it's probably a good idea to add the text in the style, because it's much easier to remove a bit of text than maybe to go in and create it. Let me demonstrate by dealing with the image first. I need to move over to the right to the Animation tab, because I want to reduce the zoom of this. I'm going to choose 85. I find that's usually just about right, but I probably need a little more space at the top to put text, so I'll use the y-axis here. I'm just going to use my up arrow to just nudge the picture down a little bit, just leaving myself a little space at the top to put a text box. But what I'll do now is go back to the properties, and I'm going to add a thin line around the outer edge of this image. Tick the box to create the border. This is going to be purely personal, of course. I don't like the width to be too great. I think 4 pixels, let's click and have a look. See, 4 pixels looks pretty nice in white, but it may look pretty good in black too. So let's just take a quick look. And black doesn't look bad at all. So I think I'll stay with black. Going back to my picture, selecting it in the Objects box here, I could tick the box to apply a shadow, and I can customize that shadow via the button to the right. But I'm reasonably happy with what I have there. The text I'm going to apply is pretty simple, so I'm going to click into the grey area once again so that I can apply the text tool. And I think I'll just say text goes here, because I cannot type the text I want, because it's going to be different for each of the slide styles I apply. So I may need to go in and adjust the text individually, but that's no great problem. But of course I need it set up to the style that I want. I'm going to keep things simple and leave the font at Arial. Black, sometimes white. I sometimes find white a little too bright, but and against the dark at the top there, I think perhaps it will be. So let's select that, and I'm going to drop to a mid-grey. I'm going to go to my animation tab and drop this down to about 6, and I'm going to move it up using the up arrow here, and we can see how that looks sitting above the image. Let me click into the grey area and I can make an evaluation. I think the text may be just a little bit big, so I'm going to highlight it, drop it down to 5 and take another look. I think I'm reasonably happy with what I've created. So I'm going to close the objects and animation screen, and I need to make sure I've got 17 seconds in my slide duration, because I already planned that I need to talk for around or up to 17 seconds. So now I think we can make the slide style. Going down to the slide style button, Tools, Create a Style. I'm going to make a special category for this. I'm going to call it my Noosa Talk, and the style is the, I'll just call it my old images style. I'll know what that means, because this is more of a maybe a temporary slide style, quick and easy to make, quick and easy to change. And of course, as you know, you can put your author's details and any comments, but I don't need that for what I'm about to do here. Click Create, and we're done. So let's test the slide style by selecting the second image in the sequence, holding the Shift key and selecting the last. So I've got them all. Drag them all down into the slide list. They all remain selected, so we may as well use that selection and apply the slide style straight away. If we didn't have them all selected, we could hit Control A and select them all in the slide list. Go to our slide style, locate the Noosa Talk, old images, and there we have our slideshow created. Now don't forget, when you've done this sort of thing, to save a project file via File, Save As at the top left, just so you can come back and change things. Now, although we've created one slide style here, if we wanted to make some slight variations, if we had, let's say, some vertical images and they didn't look quite as nice as we would like, although this one seems to look okay, but if we wanted to make a change, we can always make a derivative of the slide style. In other words, we could clone the style, adjust it, save it with another name, and now we've got two to use ready, in my case, for my presentation. I can top and tail it, of course, because I haven't got a title slide or any blanks, but that's pretty easy to achieve because I've got my background or blank there, which I could put my title over, and I can either fade down to that at the end of the slideshow, or I can put a blank in place. That's just a personal choice. But if I select one of these images and we press play, we can just look at it in the mini player. Of course, it's going to stay on screen for quite some time. Why did I get 19 there instead of 17? No problem, I'll just quickly change that. Let's move on to this one and we'll leave it running. And of course, if we wanted to add some music, we can do that too, because even though you're giving a talk, in my case I might put some music into this slideshow but keep the volume very, very low. But there you can see we've got our slideshow made. Now, to change the text is pretty easy, because if I decided that I didn't need text here because there's text on the image, then I can go into the Objects and Animation screen, highlight the text and delete. I can skip to the next one and there's no text there at all. So all I'd need to do is select the text, Properties, and I can just overtype this. quite a long title there and not spelt very well. It's an old Norton motorcycle that my brother-in-law renovated, and this was originally created from a scan negative, as you've just seen me type. So there we have slide styles, which can be a great asset, just used to help make a quick but nicely presented slideshow. Now, just to bring this video to a close, don't forget that with slide styles it's very easy to change them from one category to another, and it's very easy to change the name as well. So I may include this with the download, so you could just apply it to one of your images just to get a feel for how it looks on your computer. So perhaps old images wasn't the best title if I'm going to share this. So I'll right click and choose rename style. Now perhaps digital presentation and the word static, which just tells me that the images are static. Should I go on to create a derivative that had a bit of movement, then I could always make a change. So just click rename, and there we have it.